Yeah, we're gonna work here with removing the number 60 chain that drives the upper auger. There's a couple different things here. There's an idler sprocket, and you have to grab a 3/4 inch wrench socket. There is a slot up on top of the bracket on the side panel. You'll be able to reach in and get your wrench in to hold the flanged nylock nut, and then a 3/4 inch ratchet and loosen the sprocket. Hey, once you have it loosened, as you'll notice, you'll be able to slide the sprocket back. Now the chain's loose. Be able to remove it. And that, I guess there's a master link. You have to locate that. Here's the master link. And just like on your old bicycle, but a little stiffer and harder to work with. There, I take the clip off. Slide the link apart. There you go, and get the chain off. And now you can remove the chain. Watching that you don't get your fingers in between the sprocket and the chain, because it really hurts. I've done it before. The first thing I'm going to do is remove, this is another guide. It helps hold the snow in as you're back dragging. This is UHMW. They are a carriage bolt. And if you'll notice, I have a short bolt. It's just coming through the nylock. The reason for that is when you tighten this, for the carriage bolt to pull into the UHMW, you cannot have the engagement of the nylock first or it'll spin. So there is a reason why these are just flush. I'm going to go ahead and get a 9/16 socket. My handy little impact. Spin the nuts off. Now I'm going to tap. These are slightly stuck in. I've got a big enough hammer for the operation here, so there you go. So that part's removed. And here you can see they are actually a square hole, and there is reason for that. We don't have a hex head on the other side for clearance for our side flippers. So there you go. Okay, the reason for removing them, you wouldn't have to if you're going to work on the auger, but you'll notice when I remove these bolts, this auger slides out easier. You can finesse it out of there without taking the guides off, but I like to just take them off. It makes it easier to accomplish the task. Now this area is clear, so now you can get a 3/4 inch socket. Of course, I'm going to use my handy dandy impact here and see if I can break them loose. Pretty impressed. I haven't dropped another nut yet. This one's a little hard to get at. Okay, there. So now I've got one side removed. I'm going to show you when I pull these fasteners out, you'll notice there's a 1/2 inch thick piece of metal along this side. So there is a longer fastener used on the outside. There's 4 fasteners, 3 are the same, and 1 is longer, but when you take it apart, you'll notice that. We do run a flat washer on the outside, so when you're tightening, you can actually tighten from the outside and it'll rotate on the washer, not on the painted surface. So anyway, I'm going to take 3 of these out, and the auger will hang there now. Now I'm going to go over on the other end and remove those. Once again, they're a 3/4 inch wrench. I'm going to remove 3 of them. And then the last one, all I do is loosen it so the auger doesn't fall. Now, I'm going to get my assistant, Noah, here to help me take this out. You pull the last fastener out and then slide the auger out. There you go. Okay, to put the upper paddle auger in, you really need to loosen this locking collar on this end. You really need to have this bearing loose on this bearing so it can float back and forth. Then you lift the auger into position. One thing here is to take care that you have the greaser in a position that you can get at it, not be on the back side of the snowblower. And put all the fasteners in both ends and tighten it up. This way, by doing this, it'll draw the auger over towards the side where both sprockets are, so the sprockets line up. That's why we let this side of the bearing loose, lock collar loose, and we'll re-tighten it once the 8 bolts are tightened up. Another thing to notice here is we have a thick 1/2-inch strap on the outside of the blower, so the one of the 4 bolts is a longer bolt that goes through that longer, thicker strap iron. Once you have them in, you can tighten them up. Okay, once you have the fasteners tightened, the auger has been slid over so these 2 sprockets are in line with each other for the chain. Because you remember when we talked about putting those bearings on, there's a 206 bearing on the top, 207 on the bottom, but their centering is the same. So the outside of the inner race goes flush with the shaft on both augers. Now the chain sprockets will line up. We had left this lock collar loose. This end of the auger, paddle auger, we left this collar loose, as you remember. So when we tighten the sprocket end up, it moved the auger over to line up both sprockets. Now I'm going to come over and lock this locking collar. So once you get the collar inserted, take a center punch. Be careful not to pound on the Allen key. I've seen people do that and it really irritates you. There's a little countersunk hole that you tap on. And that, it's an off-centric, so that tightens up the collar. Then you rotate into position so you can get at the Allen screw to keep it from backing up. Snug that Allen screw. And that end is secure. Now we'll move to the other end and we'll put the chain on. Okay, we're gonna install the chain. Here now, this is a real finger pincher, watch out. As you start rolling these augers and getting your fingers in there, and you'll end up like me with chopped off ends of your fingers and such. So just be careful. You notice I slid the adjuster up out of the way, and then I just feed the chain around. The top auger will turn, obviously. And I feed it till the chain so I get it out in the open so I can work with it. Then I take the splice link or master link, connect the chain back together, and the link bridge, and then the clip. So I'm going to see if I can keep it from not flying out of the way. There, I clipped it in. Here, I'm going to insert the clip on the master link. I rotate it so it's in the notch. Pop it in and just check that they're in the notches on both sides and you're ready to go. So now once you have the master link clipped in, then you take and grab onto the idler sprocket, and you see we did loosen it up earlier. It's in a slot, and people ask, well, how tight do you want it? Well, what I do is just pull so the chain's good and snug. And then you'll need a 3/4 inch wrench, and you can use a ratchet, or I'm going to use an impact here. Put it on the end of your bolt. Draw the sprocket down so it's snug. There you go. You see, when I'm done, this is about perfect. The chain can wiggle a little bit. It's pretty snug, but you don't want it real loose. When you run them, they will run in. So if you think it's too tight, it'll run in and the chain will be fine. If it's necessary to put on new side guides because they're wore out, we do ship them with new fasteners. There's a square hole and there's a carriage bolt, so you insert the bolt in the hole. And I usually take a hammer and tap them in so you insert the square properly into the square hole. And then insert it onto the side of the blower that where you had removed it. Put the 3/8 flange nylock nuts on. And then tighten them up. You'll notice now when I tighten them, the bolt will only be flush with the outside of the nut. And the reason for that is if you hit the nylock early like you should, the fastener might turn in the square hole. So there is a reason for that. This is proper for this application. The reason is if we engaged in the nylock earlier, so we exposed 2 or 3 threads beyond the nylock, the carriage bolt will spin in the UHMW plastic. So this is by design. And repeat on the other side, going through the same process. And with UHMW, you can over tighten them and just squash the plastic out. So just reasonable care. Like I said, the fastener should just be coming outside the nut.